I sat quietly in the corner of a small, dimly lit room, my notebook resting untouched on my lap, as the much-anticipated interview with Wayne Rooney began to unfold. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill press chat, it was pitched as a rare, unfiltered glimpse into the life of the English football legend, a man who'd kept his deepest stories under lock and key for 2 decades. The atmosphere started off light, almost deceptively so. The interviewer's voice carried a calm, welcoming tone, Rooney flashed a faint, familiar smile, and the air buzzed with a casual warmth that felt like the prelude to an easy conversation. But that illusion didn't hold. With each question, each carefully measured response, the room seemed to contract, the air growing dense with tension, pulling me into a swirling vortex of drama, raw honesty, regret, and emotion that I hadn't seen coming. The interviewer eased into the session with a question that sounded simple but carried the weight of a lifetime. Wayne, let's rewind to the very beginning. How did growing up in Croxteth shape the person you are today? Rooney didn't answer straight away. He leaned back in his chair, his broad shoulders slumping just a touch, his hands clasping together tightly as if anchoring himself against a flood of memories. After a long, deliberate sigh that seemed to echo in the stillness, his eyes drifted somewhere far off, back to those rough streets, I imagined, and he finally spoke, his voice low and rough, like the scrape of boots on concrete. Croxteth, it taught me how to survive, he said, letting the word hang there, heavy and deliberate. I grew up in a proper estate, a tough, unforgiving place where you either learned quick or got swallowed up. The streets were always damp, slick with rain or worse, lined with houses that were cramped, peeling at the edges, the kind where you could hear your neighbors through the walls. The people there, they judged you fast, sized you up before you even had a chance to speak. I was 12, just a scrawny kid with a chipped tooth and a temper I couldn't tame, when this lad at school started mouthing off about my family. He said something about my mum, I won't repeat it here, but it was the kind of thing that cuts deep, the kind of insult you feel in your bones. I saw red, completely lost it. I don't even remember exactly what I did, shoved him hard, maybe swung a wild punch, but I was shaking, couldn't see straight through the rage. It wasn't smart, wasn't thought out. It was just me, a kid with this fire burning inside that I didn't know how to put out. The interviewer tilted his head, his face a mix of curiosity and quiet understanding, and pressed further, I've heard you got into a fair bit of trouble back then, suspended from school 14 times, is that right? Rooney let out a wry, almost sheepish chuckle, shaking his head as if still baffled by the reckless boy he'd been. Yeah, 14 times. Not exactly something I'd stick on a trophy shelf. But put yourself in my shoes for a second, some kid comes at your family, your mum or your nan, the ones who'd give their last penny to keep you fed, and they sling the worst insults they can muster. What do you do? I'd get into it, a shove here, a punch there, whatever it took to shut them up. Was it wrong? Course it was, I see that now. But back then, I didn't regret it one bit. I was protecting what mattered most to me. That's how I grew up, you don't let anyone step on you or the people you love, no matter the cost. The conversation took a turn, carrying us from the jagged edges of his childhood to the dazzling, chaotic heights of his career at Manchester United, a chapter that defined him in the eyes of the world. The interviewer leaned forward slightly, a spark of intrigue lighting up his eyes. Let's dive into your United days. Cristiano Ronaldo once said you threatened to sort him out after that infamous World Cup 2006 moment. What's the real story behind that? Rooney's face broke into a wide, genuine grin, and he let out a deep, rumbling laugh that filled the room, cutting through the tension like a burst of sunlight. Oh, mate, yeah, that's a true one, he said, his voice bright with the memory, almost gleeful. We were both young, full of ourselves, tempers flaring like you wouldn't believe. That match, you know, when he winked after I got sent off, I was absolutely livid. I mean, steam coming out of my ears livid. Back at the training ground, I grabbed his shirt, got right up in his face, just to let it all out. I was shouting, he was shouting back, arms flailing, it was a proper row. But it wasn't some big brawl, not like the papers made. It out to be more like two mates letting off steam, getting it out of our systems. Sir Alex saw the whole thing, marched over with that look of his, you know the one, the stare that could freeze your blood in your veins, and said, "You're teammates, not enemies. Sort it out." His voice had this edge, stern but warm, like a dad setting his kid straight after they've been at each other's throats. We cooled off after that, shook hands, even laughed about it later over a drink in the canteen. And then we went on to win the Champions League together. Those days, they were wild, full of fire and chaos, but they shaped us, made us brothers in a way I can't explain. The room felt lighter for a moment, the tension dissolving into a wave of shared nostalgia, until the interviewer's next question landed with a quiet, jarring thud. "What about the rumors that you hired someone to follow Colleen after your cheating scandal broke? That must have been a tough time." Rooney's smile vanished in an instant. He dropped his gaze to the floor, his hands tightening into fists, knuckles whitening under the strain, and his voice shrank to a near whisper, barely audible over the hum of the room. Yeah, I messed up bad there," he said, the words spilling out slow and pained. "When you've done something that's stupid, that's selfish, you panic. Your head's a mess, spinning with guilt and fear, and you think you can fix it, cover it up, control the damage before it swallows you whole. I made a dumb call, a really dumb, desperate call, and it was wrong, dead wrong. Colleen, she's the heart of my life, the best person I've ever known, and she deserved so much better than that, better than me at my worst. The fact she forgave me, stuck by me through all that muck, I still can't wrap my head around it. I'll never take that for granted. I'm a lucky man, luckier than I've got any right to be after the things I've done." The interview veered into darker territory as the interviewer began to peel back the layers of Rooney's more troubled years, the ones that cast long shadows over his legacy. "Let's go to 2017, he said, his tone measured but firm, like a surgeon preparing to cut. "A woman claimed you paid her to dress up as a superhero at some wild parties. What was going on in your head back then?" Rooney shifted uncomfortably in his seat, pursing his lips as if the memory tasted bitter, sour on his tongue. "That was a low point, no question about it," he admitted, his voice thick with self-reproach, each word dragged out like it hurt to say. "I had too much cash burning a hole in my pocket, too much time on my hands, and not nearly enough sense to know better. I'd get caught up in these daft nights, loud music pumping, too many drinks flowing, people egging you on, and I'd do things that seemed like a laugh at the time but were just, pointless, empty, a waste of everything. I'd stumble home at dawn, head pounding, and wonder what the hell I was doing with my life. Looking back, I cringe at it, cringe at the stupidity, the recklessness. It's embarrassing to think I let myself sink that low, that I thought any of that nonsense mattered in the grand scheme of things." The interviewer nodded thoughtfully, his eyes steady, then ventured deeper into the shadows. "And what about the rumors of an affair with a teammate's wife? There's been a lot of chatter about that over the years, a lot of speculation." Rooney's face flushed a deep, burning red, his jaw tightening, and for a moment, I thought he might shut down entirely, walk out right then and there. "I'm not getting into the weeds on that one," he said, his tone sharp but controlled, like he was drawing a hard line in the sand. "I'll say this much, and this is all I'll say, I made mistakes, big, ugly ones that I can't take back, no matter how much I wish I could. I hurt people, let down people who trusted me, people who had my back, and I've had to carry that weight ever since. You don't get a do-over with the past, but it sticks with you, follows you like a shadow you can't shake. I feel it, every single day, and I've had to learn to live with it." The air grew thick and heavy, almost suffocating, as the interviewer brought up a moment that sent shockwaves through the football world and beyond. "Let's talk about 2017 again. You got into a scuffle with an Everton fan while drunk. How do you look back on that now, with some distance?" Rooney's eyes drifted to the floor, his broad frame seeming to shrink inward as regret clouded his face, etching lines deeper than before. "That night," he said slowly, each word deliberate, measured, like he was stepping carefully through a minefield, I'd had way too much to drink, far more than I should have. Lost all sense of who I was, where I was, what I was doing. I don't even remember what sparked it. Some words were said, something petty probably, and I snapped. It got messy, uglier than it needed to be. I shouldn't have been out there in that state, shouldn't have let myself get to that point. I tracked the guy down after, apologized face to face, tried to make it right however I could, sent him something, I don't know, just to show I meant it, but that doesn't wipe it away. The shame sticks with you, gnaws at you when you're lying awake at night, replaying it over and over. The interviewer let the silence settle, a heavy pause that seemed to stretch forever, then asked a question that felt like it sucked the oxygen from the room. Is it true you thought about ending your life in 2014? Rooney's breath caught in his throat, a sharp, ragged sound. His eyes welled up, glistening under the soft light, and his hands trembled visibly as he spoke, his voice breaking with every halting, anguished word. Yeah, it's true, he said, barely above a whisper at first, then louder, as if forcing it out. When United pushed me out, it broke me in a way I can't even put into words. I'd given everything to that club, my heart, my soul, every drop of sweat I had in me, and then, just like that, I was nothing to them, cast aside like yesterday's news. I sat in the garage one night, alone, just me and my thoughts, and they were the darkest I'd ever had. The walls felt like they were closing in, the silence deafening, and I didn't know how to climb out of that pit, didn't see a way forward through the fog. I had a bottle in one hand, my head in the other, and I was this close, to giving up. But then I thought of my kids, their faces, their little voices calling me dad, their laughter echoing in my head. They stopped me cold. I couldn't leave them, couldn't let them grow up without me, wondering why I wasn't there. They're why I'm still here, why I kept fighting, even when I didn't want to. The focus shifted to family, the bedrock of his life and the source of his deepest, most jagged wounds. Your son Kai once told his friends, my dad's scary. What was it like hearing that, knowing it came from him? The interviewer asked, his voice soft but carrying a piercing weight that cut through the room. Rooney blinked hard, fighting back tears that threatened to spill over, his broad hands fidgeting nervously. That cut me deeper than anything, deeper than any tackle, any headline, he said, his voice cracking like brittle glass under pressure. I'd let my temper run me for too long, let it spill over into everything, poison everything. One day, after a bad match, I think we'd lost 3-0, just a rotten day, I came home fuming, storming through the house like a bull. I smashed a glass against the counter, just pure frustration boiling over, shards flying everywhere. Kai was there, standing in the doorway, saw it all. He didn't say a word, didn't cry, didn't run, just looked at me with these wide, scared eyes, like I was a stranger. It hit me like a freight train, right in the chest. I was turning into the kind of dad I never wanted to be, the kind who makes his kid afraid instead of loved, instead of safe, protected. I stood there, staring at the mess, and I hated myself in that moment, hated what I'd let myself become. The interviewer pressed on gently, his tone almost tender. Colleen wrote once that you're more like your father than you realize. How does that sit with you, hearing it from her? Rooney bowed his head, his shoulders hunching as if the words physically struck him, his voice trembling with a mix of pain and resignation. That's the worst thing she's ever said to me, because it's true, and I hate that it's true, he said, choking up slightly. My dad was a hard man, quick to snap, quick with his hands sometimes, rough around the edges in ways that left marks. I saw how it affected us growing up, me, my mom, my brothers, and I swore to myself I'd be different, better, softer for my own kids. But sometimes you look in the mirror and see him staring back, the same temper flaring, the same flaws creeping in, and it terrifies you. It's like fighting a ghost you can't shake off. I've spent years trying to outrun that shadow, to be the man I promised myself I'd be, not the one I was afraid of turning into. As the interview drew to its close, the interviewer offered a reflective, almost philosophical final question: if you could go back and talk to 12-year-old Wayne, that kid in Crocksteff with the chipped tooth and the fiery temper, what would you tell him? Rooney went still, lost in thought, his brow furrowing as he searched for the right words, his fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. Then he lifted his head, his eyes softer than they'd been all night, carrying a quiet, hard-earned peace that seemed to settle over him like a blanket. "I'd say, calm down, Wayne," he said slowly, his voice steady now, measured and sure. "Life's not just about throwing punches, shouting back, or letting anger call the shots, it's bigger than that, deeper than that. It's not about proving you're the toughest kid on the block or settling every score. One day, you'll have a family who loves you through all the mess, through every mistake, every stumble, and they deserve to see you at your best, not the kid haunted by the past, picking fights in the schoolyard, but the man who learned from it, who grew beyond it, who found something worth holding on to. Hold on to that, not the rage." He stood, shook the interviewer's hand with a firm, steady grip, and as he turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of his face in the flickering light. The old fire, the defiance that once burned so bright it could light up a stadium, was gone. In its place was exhaustion, yes, etched into the lines around his eyes, but also a stillness, a quiet peace that only someone who's weathered a lifetime of storms could carry, a man who'd fought his demons and was still standing. When it was all over, I stepped out into the cool evening air, the weight of the night settling over me as my mind buzzed with everything I'd heard. Wayne Rooney isn't the bad boy of Crocksteff anymore, the scrappy kid with a chip on his shoulder, nor the brash, unstoppable star who once set the football world ablaze with his brilliance and his blunders. He's a man etched with scars, some carved by the harshness of the world he came from, others by his own hands, his own choices, but he's piecing himself back together, day by day, choice by choice, step by painstaking step. His greatest victory isn't in the goals he scored, the trophies he lifted, or the headlines he dominated, though there were plenty of those. It's in this long, winding, often painful road to rediscover who he is beneath it all, to build a home where love outweighs regret, where his kids see a father they can trust, not fear, and to become the husband, the father, the man he always hoped he could be, deep down in the quiet corners of his heart.